Our satsang is perfection is self-transcendence. It's always fascinating when you want to do a satsang or you have to do a satsang and you open the book and you say, what is the topic? And then often you come across a topic like the one today, perfection is self-transcendence, and you sort of start to think, gee, what practical experience do I have of either perfection or self-transcendence? And then sort of it gets you thinking and wondering that really all of us, if we stop to think, can be perfect already. Once Yoganandaji said, once a disciple of Yoganandaji had told him that it's easy for you to say it because you are a master. And Yoganandaji said, what do you think made me a master? It is by doing. And so here, as we strive towards perfection, because believe me, everybody in this room is striving towards perfection, otherwise you won't be here. So many other things to do on a Saturday evening, right? But here, our just intense longing for perfection that's driven from the soul, which is perfect already, brings us here again and again. So on the first place, never doubt that perfection is achievable and all of us will become perfect and want it and long it deeply. So what is it that we can do to be perfect? Perhaps many things. But as a theme, as I was reading the rays and wondering about how it can come about, the thought of kindness came to mind. And kindness is often misunderstood somehow. And kindness is supposed to be sweet and soft and loving. Agreed? All of us, or many of us, have children. How often are we always sweet and soft and loving to our children? At times we have to be firm, harsh even, raise our voices, do things that they won't like. What happens? Are we not kind then? If you're taking a child for vaccination, for example, I can see this little one at the back, so tiny, so beautiful, so precious. And what do? You take him out into a room and somebody pokes him with a very, very sharp object. Is the mother and father unkind? So think of kindness as something that has a dual manifestation outwardly. But inwardly, what happens? When you are being kind, you are only looking for the person in front of you for his or her highest good. Like the parent taking the child for vaccination. Yes, it hurts, and the child cries. Earlier there used to be fever and rashes and who knows what. Remember? Yeah, all of us carry these little marks, no? On our hands and shoulders. But that pain that the child goes through at that point prevents further pain going ahead. Another analogy you can think of is of a flame, a fire maybe, burning bright in front of you. And you put your hand into the fire. Closer, closer you go and put it into the fire. What happens? We get burnt. Do you think the fire is kind? The answer is definitely yes. It is telling you, as you come too close to me, this is what will happen to you. So beware. So think of kindness in that light, both when the world gives it to you and when you try to give it to the others. They say contentment, for example, is like all of these sayings, on the spiritual path that you come across, like loyalty is the first principle on the spiritual path. Contentment is the supreme virtue. Patience is the shortest route to God. What about kindness? kindness indeed is the sweetest route to God. You are always trying to be helpful without any personal desire from whoever you're helping. It's the same thing that the parents going out to vaccinate their child. And as you do this more and more, as you saw in that reading with Swamiji, that it is that inherent sweetness in us that starts to flow out towards others. A lot of us are very happy with our family, the biological family around us. And that itself is an expansive state of being, better than being alone. But is there more in this world than just the biological family that you can bestow your kindness to? And sometimes, it's easier to do it to strangers, to people you don't know, because the personal expectation back is reduced. So try it. Try to be kind. And how is it Swamiji defines kindness when he talks about the three things in terms of pity and compassion and kindness, the difference? He gives a beautiful analogy. He says, in pity, if you see a person drowning in the river, you jump in and drown with the person. Doesn't help anyone, does it? So if you see a friend crying and moaning and sad, you go and start crying and moaning and be sad with that person. Kitna acha lag raha hai. Two sad people now instead of one in the world. It is not helpful. Compassion. If you see a man drowning in the river, you try your best. You throw in a rope, you maybe swim ahead, you grab the person, you pull him out to safety, see he's all right, and leave. So, when that friend comes crying to you, you try to have a good time with that person and let the person go. Swamiji says that is better. But he said kindness. There is something about kindness that transcends the other two. What do you do in kindness? When you see the drowning person, you do your best to save the person. Take him out of the river, make sure he's well, sit with him, and then go out and teach him how to swim so that he never drowns again. So when that sad friend comes along, you have a good time, and when the person is happy, you go out and show the person how he or she can be happy all the time. And this is what our good friends behind us are trying desperately for us, incarnation after incarnation. Hum sunte nahi hai theek se. We just keep on that flow of life, and that is where the second part of this self-transcendence comes to the picture. What keeps us flowing in a direction that we're flowing? Usually it's our habits, it's our tendencies. You could say it's our karma, but who created that karma? Did you create my karma? I created mine, no? And I'm flowing through in this life, in that karma. All of us, the rishis say, at the time of birth, the place of birth, the parents, everything we choose. Our choice may be limited to our karmic fingerprint, but we still make a choice that in this life, I will be born at this time, in this place, and I will learn my lessons as I go through. All of us are thus endowed with a very, very unique dharma. And what is dharma? It is the right action for us, very simply defined. Each person in this room, anyone hearing this, has a very unique right action allocated for him in this lifetime. And if we are doing our right action, then freedom is ours. If I start to do somebody else's right action, it doesn't work. Let's take the example of Rajarshi Janakananda. Yogananda ji never asked him to stop running his companies. Did he? Why? Because that was Rajarshi's dharma. Sister Gyanamata, and I'm taking these two names because they got liberated very soon after Kriya Yoga. What did Sister Gyanamata do? Did she run 8 companies? Was she better than Rajarshi at the business world? She was the head of nuns, basically unknown to this world. She was doing her duty. Rajarshi was doing his. Both of them got liberated. Reflect back on that self-transcendence comes not from just mindlessly pursuing our desires or our habits or defending our ego-guided action, but self-transcendence comes from flowing with what your duty is in life. And how will you know that it is your duty? Oh yes, the angels will come and tell you each night when you meditate, my son, my daughter, you have done the right thing. No, it doesn't really happen that way, does it? Feel in your heart. If you're even-minded and cheerful under all circumstances during the day, then you have done your duty. If you feel a tightness, if you feel excitement, if you feel anger, closeness, angst in your heart, you have not done your duty. It is never about the other person. It's about you doing your duty. And that is very freeing, no? My life doesn't depend on you. That is a wonderful feeling. But take it and use it wisely. And as you go through that self-transcendence thing, both in the Gita reading and the rays of the One Light, you would notice that all of us, as we were growing up, had a circle of friends who usually, what did they do? Did the same things together. There was this whole set of guys and girls who would like to study, who would like to do recitation, who would write poems maybe, or I don't know who they were, but they were there. And then there was this bunch of other people who would like to have fun, go out and play and create ruckus and they would all band together. And we grow through life thinking that what we are doing is correct because we are reinforced by our friends. And then what happens? We come to the spiritual path. And what does Guruji do for us? He places our best friends and worst enemies in our vicinity. And he says, now guys, work it out. बहुत meditation करते हो. You feel a lot of calmness. Take this, test yourself, see what you can do. And that is when you're almost forced to self-transcend at small, small intervals. Suddenly you come across people who don't agree with what you're doing. You come across people who are against what you're doing. And you say, oh my God, that never happened before. And you could either blame the person in front of you, or you could say, what can I do now? Because that is how self-transcendent happens. It's not an automatic process, it takes effort. And little by little you understand that there are people who will always encourage you, love you, give you the strength, and they have their role to play. Remember the role thing? Everybody's playing his or her role. So their role is to keep the energy flowing up. And then Guruji puts the other people around you, whose job is to test the theory and the principles of energy. Can you, with your will, keep the energy moving up? Because if you can, you will see very soon that you're always even-minded and cheerful under all circumstances. And that basically is your guide that you are doing the right action. This other part at the end of the Ray's reading is another thing that really fascinates me, that out of thousands, not many seek God, do they? But look around you, left and right. There's quite a few of us here in the room. and the few of us watching us outside too, what is the guarantee that our perfection, self-transcendence will be achieved? In that we have the blessing of Yogananda ji, who said, our percentages are better. In the Gita it says that if you cannot achieve the final union with me, do not fear, do not worry. You will be given birth, or you will take birth in a family of spiritual-minded people who will then help you and guide you towards your goal. And again I say, look left and right, look behind you. We are born in this spiritual family. Let's use this family well. Let's do our role. So that time when we didn't find God was the last life. This time, in this family, we will find God. Because that's what Krishna said, right? He can't be wrong. So use this family well and see how very quickly, as we cooperate with the grace that is always trying to flow through us, as Master is trying to help us, that we very quickly transcend our egoic desires, our habits. I like to do this, I don't want to do this. Just drop away. And you wake up in the morning like Swami Kriyananda would, and you look up into the world and say, how can I help you? What can I do for you? And also remember, it is almost a fallacy to try and love people as they are. And that is where I come back to what I started with, kindness. If you allow kindness to flow through you, you will see it's easier to love people as they are. It is also easy to love you as you are. And then in time, like Yogananda ji did when he looked at his devotees and said, you don't know how beautiful you look, you're all made of light. That reality too will be ours. And then perhaps it won't matter who has this habit and who has this thought, oh, humko 10 years ago what this person said to me won't matter, because you will see that form only as light. But until then, let's take this sweet, sweet root of kindness, both in terms of being helpful to others and to ourselves. And then we will see this whole journey of self-transcendence to self-realization will be one sweet journey. It won't matter how long it is or short it is and who did what to us or not, but it will be sweet. God bless you.